joining us here now, and we were just kind of sharing some conversation off the air. Chad Buchanan is the Pacers general manager. He's from Des Moines, Iowa, and you and I have a mutual good friend in Greg Lansing, the head coach at Indiana State.
Greg's great guy.
Awesome dude.
Great guy, great family, great basketball background, and a terrific coach.
And I'm hoping for bigger and better things this year. I know he likes what he has over there, and I'm really excited for him because he's a joy to be around. I mean, just basketball.
He is a basketball junkie. He was over at a couple of our practices during training camp, and I just love sitting next to him and loves his team. You know, he's excited about his group this year, and we'll get over and see him at some point.
This is General Manager Chad Buchanan of the Pacers. Before we get into the nuts and the bolts of this team this year and what you like about it, what you expect, how did you get to this spot? I mean, there are probably a lot of people out there that don't know a great deal about you, your background, and how you got here.
Sure, it's a good question. I grew up in Iowa, and I played at a small college, a Division III school, Simpson College. I played basketball and baseball all 4 years there. Wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do with myself and decided I wanted to go the coaching route. I spent 2 years as a graduate assistant for Dr. Tom Davis at the University of Iowa.
What years?
I was there from 95 to 97.
Oh, let's see.
Back when Purdue was very good.
Was that the Dean Oliver years right there?
No, Dean came in after I did. It was Andre Woolridge, Chris Kingsbury, Jess Settles.
Murray.
Kenyon Murray was with us. Yep. So we had a good group. Made the NCAA tournament both years and had a good run. And then I got back into coaching at the college I played at, Simpson, for 5 years. I did a bunch of different odds and ends things, along with coaching, but I was primarily recruiting. So I was out on the road evaluating players and recruiting players and their families, and really grew to like that part of the business. I met Kevin Pritchard my last year at Simpson through a mutual friend. I got to know Kevin a little bit. He offered me a job. He was coaching a professional minor league team in Kansas City, Missouri, called the Kansas City Knights. Offered me a job on his staff, and my wife, we were living in the dorm at Simpson College, and she was ready to divorce me if we didn't get out of there. So I took the job with Kevin, spent a year in Kansas City with him. Yeah. We became very close. After 1 year, Kevin left the team to go scout for the San Antonio Spurs. I went back into coaching at Drake University at the college level with Dr. Tom Davis, ironically, again. Spent 1 year there. Kevin and I stayed in touch. Kevin leaves to go. He's hired by the Portland Trailblazers as their director of player personnel. Calls me, hey, I need a college scout. Would you be interested in doing it? That was, for me, what I've been doing. I've been evaluating players for so long and coaching, and felt like it was right up my alley. And so I jumped at the opportunity. I loved working with Kevin. We had a lot of similar philosophies and beliefs and really connected as people. And so the opportunity to go work for Kevin again was very appealing. So I jumped at it and spent 10 years with the Blazers in various positions, from college scout to director of college scouting. I was acting GM twice. For one full season coming out of the lockout. And then, after 10 years there, I took a job as assistant general manager with the Charlotte Hornets. Spent 3 years there working for MJ, which was a really cool experience.
I bet.
And then Kevin, got promoted here. Larry kind of stepped in more of a consulting role, and Kevin was bumped up to president and needed a GM and asked me if I'd be interested in joining him back.
That's a path right there.
Yeah, so kind of full circle back here with Kevin.
How good of a player were you?
I was slow.
Well,
didn't defend, didn't rebound, couldn't dribble, but I could.
Wait a minute.
I could catch and shoot if you needed somebody to catch and shoot.
Tony, describe John, the guy sitting across from you, to
right now. You just described me.
You're on 3-point line to 3-point line.
Basically, I knew my weaknesses. I knew my game. I stuck to it.
See, that's it. But you're always going to get picked because you can shoot.
That's right. That's right.
And in this era of the NBA, that is what is important. I would say this all the time as a joke, but the three-pointer's too easy in the NBA. Now we got to move that thing back.
Move it back, especially the corner. The corner three.
Oh, the corners. Everybody.
Here's the one rule. If I could change about the NBA game, we talk about this a lot. The corner is such a tight spot for NBA players. You get Miles Turner, who has size 19, 20 feet. He staggers his feet a little bit. How many times do you see an NBA player step out along the sideline?
You got to tiptoe it.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
Yeah. I think if we, that's one thing we talk about all the time, is you could move the line back a little bit. I think that eliminate some of those tic-tac turnovers that really disrupt the flow of the game.
And then you just can't help it because the players are so, especially the ones that are out there, are so big right
Absolutely.
now. It just happens. Now, the other question I had, were you at Iowa when Michael Lewis threw the inbounds pass off of somebody's face?
I was not.
Were you not?
I was not.
Somebody's got to tell me that story. I always thought it was Ed Horton, but Ed Horton was way before you.
I believe it was it Chris Street?
Was it
either Chris Street or Jeff Settles? It was one of the two.
It might have been Settles.
Yeah.
It might have been Settles.
That was before I got there.
No, okay.
Before I got
I was just kind of curious about that. Anyway, I mean, you do a lot of talent evaluation, obviously, and this is, by the way, it's Chad Buchanan, the general manager of the Pacers. He's with us here at Bankers Life Fieldhouse. What did you like about the guys that you brought in? And let's start because I'm looking at him right now, Tyreke Evans. What do you like about what you have in him?
Tyreke is a guy who's been, around a lot of teams. He's been with Sacramento. He's been with New Orleans. He's been with Memphis. He's never been on a team that's been like, he's been on some okay teams. He's only been in the playoffs once. I felt like that's a player who's hungry to contribute to a team trying to really win. And so that appealed to me to begin with. Just his background, his resume. Obviously, he's a terrific talent, but we need another playmaker with Victor on the floor. And with our second unit, we needed a playmaker as well. Losing Lance, that's what he brought. He brought the ability to make plays for others, for himself. And I feel like Tyreke is very good at that as well. Tyreke has improved his shooting over the years. He's always been able to attack the paint. He's improved his decision making. He's improved as a defender, and he's hungry. Like, he wants to be a part of a team that is playing for something. And not that his teams before weren't, but a lot of those teams were young and they were developing. And I think he's ready for that next step and wants to contribute in any way he can.
Well, it's funny, too, because that seems like a common theme with the three guys you guys brought in via free agency here. With Kyle Quinn, with McDermott, with Evans. The common theme is just wanting to go someplace where your opportunity to win is right now. And then you get the allure of what is, obviously, to these players, the best locker room in the NBA, they'll tell you.
Sure. You talk about Doug. Doug's bounced around to so many different teams. He's never really felt like he's had a home where he can settle in, relax. He knows his role. He knows what we need from him, and just go play. And, as a shooter, you're going to have ups and downs. Doug will go through highs and lows. But I think he feels like he has a home now, and we want him to feel like he has a home because he brings a lot of things that you need. When you put Victor on the floor, you put Tyreke on the floor, you put a great facilitator like Domas on the floor, you need shooting around those guys, and Doug can bring that. And, Kyle brings us an element of toughness, of physicality, is our fifth big probably at this point. But if any of those guys were to go down, you would plug Kyle right in and feel great about him.
You mentioned Doug McDermott, too. How much of what you saw at the end of his time in Dallas kind of sold you on it? Because that's where, and he's told me this before, and you kind of saw it, he really hit his stride. The 5 places he's been in the NBA, that's at the end of the Dallas season last year, is where you finally saw what you thought you were going to see when he came out of Creighton.
Absolutely. I mean, he shot the lights out of it in Dallas, and he felt like, when you ask him, like, I know you spoke with him, he felt comfortable there. He felt like he'd found a rhythm with the team, the guys he was playing with on the court. The coach really maximized him, and I think that's what we're trying to do with him as well. And if he shoots 48% for us from the 3 this year, I mean, that's home run for us. We would embrace that kind of shooting, but that's a lot to be expected. I mean, that's a very, very efficient shooting stretch for him in Dallas.
So Chad Buchanan, general manager of the Pacers, joins us here, and Kyle Quinn, as we mentioned, and he told me this as well, and this is, the allure was coming to a place. He could have gone back to New York, probably had some other offers, but coming here with the opportunity to win and be able to produce rebounding, defensive toughness, I'm assuming is what you're really looking for out of him off the bench.
Absolutely. He's a physical presence. He's got a enigmatic personality. He lights up the room. He's very outgoing, very charismatic, and you need that in an 82-game season. You need somebody to kind of lighten the mood when it needs to be lightened. You need somebody to fire up the team when it needs to be fired up. And Al Jefferson did that for us last year, and we hope Kyle can bring some of those intangibles. But last year, if we had a couple guys go down, or one guy go down, Domas goes down, Miles went down at times last year, Al was right there to plug in, ready to perform. Now, Kyle's a little different than he's more of a defensive, minded player than Al was. He's not going to give you the offense that Al did, but he can really pass. Extremely intelligent player, and a smart defender, and he's tough. And those are the type of qualities that help you win games.
Chad, what's sold you guys longer term on Miles here?
In a small market like this, when you get a talent like that who loves, embraces being a Pacer and wants to be here, we'd be foolish not to try to lock him up. Obviously Miles is still an emerging and developing player, and we hope to see more growth from him this year and in the future. And making the commitment that we did, that Mr. Simon made to him, just shows our belief in him. And, he's the type of character that we want in our locker room. And Kevin and I are both big on character, as is Nate. And Miles is exactly the type of person we want in our locker room.
Well, give me the pros and cons of doing what you did, prior to the deadline. I think that was at midnight last night, or waiting until seeing how the season goes. What are some of the pros and cons?
Sure, I would say the pro is showing faith in your player, showing them that you believe in him, that you want him here, that he's a big part of your future, and that you're committed to him. And the cons are, if you wait it out, and he would let him play out this year, he becomes a restricted free agent next summer, the player might be questioning, or do you really believe in me the whole year, which puts a little bit of pressure on them to perform, a little uncertainty in their mind. What is this team? Do they want me here? Do they believe in me? Are they committed to me? And then you also expose yourself to potential financial risks next summer. If Miles has a terrific year, which we all hope he does, and there's a lot of teams next summer that have a lot of cap room to spend. And so that opens us up. It exposes us to another team pursuing Miles and signing him to a major offer sheet, which exposes us financially and building this team moving forward.
Pacers General Manager Chad Buchanan with us. I think you have 6 guys on 1-year deals right now. We're good, bad? How do you view that?
It can be. We talk to our guys. We're very upfront with our guys about it. That's kind of like an elephant in the room in our locker room. Is a lot of guys that have every reason to think me, because this is an important year for them contractually moving forward. But, our challenge is, to get guys to sacrifice, because last year our guys sacrificed. We had some guys that were in, it's not talked about a lot last year, Darren Collison, Boyan, Lance. Those guys had team options, so they were essentially in 1-year deals. Thad Young and Corey were in player options. Those were essentially 1-year deals. So we had kind of a similar dynamic a little bit last year. There were some more options involved, but our guys sacrificed. The team had success, and everybody gets reward in that scenario. So we've committed to our guys and communicated to our guys that when you win and you're part of a successful team, which hopefully this season is, you get rewarded for it.
Is it tough? Is it tough to explain and get positive feedback when you say, hey, it is more about winning than it is about your individual numbers, because we're such a numbers crunching group? I mean, everybody is. Is that tough to get that point across? I mean, does it take a while?
We have such high character, smart players in our locker room. I think they understand, the situation that not only they are in individually, but where the team's at with that dynamic of the contracts. I think they also understand that your reputation, your character, how hard you compete every night is just as important sometimes as the numbers you produce. And Trevor Rees is a great example. Trevor sacrificed a little bit probably, and maybe plays being called for him, and the amount of times he touched the ball in Houston last year. They had a phenomenal season, and he's a big role player for that team, and he gets rewarded last summer because teams around the league say, wow, that guy was part of a great team. I don't really care about the stats he put up. He was an important piece to a winning team, and that adds value. And so that's what we try to communicate to our guys. And our guys are smart. They get that. They're not thinking about how does this impact me. I think they're committed to the team. Now, we could hit a stretch here come January if we have an injury or we're just not playing well and things aren't going great. Now that becomes a challenge. Now it's like, okay, this team hasn't gone where we hoped it would. Now it's about me. And that's where we're going to find the real challenge. I think right now our guys are all in on the team. They're all in on the team.
See, that's interesting, too, because you can be – I would think it'd be easier to become detached if you're in a 1-year deal like that and think, all right, well, this is not going well right now. This whole team aspect is not going well. And that seems like that would be an incredible challenge midseason if that happened.
It can. There's a lot more shorter-term contracts in our league these days, too. Yeah. You get – the select few guys who get longer-term contracts. Miles got one, obviously. Victor's on one, but for the most part, these guys are playing on shorter-term deals these days, and hopefully it keeps them hungry to stay in shape, to play hard every night, and be a good member of the locker room, and hopefully that motivates them to do that.
Were you surprised when Thad decided to come back?
We were thrilled. We were thrilled. I know that was a tough decision for Thad because he's obviously such at an age where it's he's probably in right in the thick of his prime of his career. And you got to think, long term a little bit for him. Like, I'm not 22, 23 anymore. And but we've also communicated to Thad, all along that you're such an important piece of this team. We would love for you to opt in. We want you back. We want continuity with our starting five. And, at the end of the day, he decided to do that. And thrilled to have him back, just to have our starting five intact back this year. And hopefully they pick up chemistry-wise where they left off.
Chad Buchanan, the general manager of the Pacers, joins us. Do you believe in the philosophy that you have to have a big three? I mean, we heard that last night because we saw it last night. You see it in Boston, you see it in Philly, see it in Golden State. To a lesser degree, you would see it if you had a healthy Russell Westbrook in OKC. Is that necessary in this landscape of NBA?
It helps, but I've seen teams do it without a big three. I saw Dallas with Dirk Nowitzki with kind of a big one, and a lot of really good players around him. Miami with Dwayne Wade and Shaq. Detroit didn't really have a big one. They had 5 really good players, and I think in this environment today, we have a star in Victor, and we're trying to find players. If we can have one of our guys internally emerge into another star, that's great. But, for the time being, we need to find players that we can put around Victor that complement him, that help him, and make his game and make his job easier. And so, we've got to be patient with that. We're not going to rush and make some drastic move, because we feel like we have depth this year, which I think is it's not a star, but depth is very, very valuable in our league over the course of 82 games. And we're happy with where things are at right now with the roster, and let's see how it plays out.
So Chad Buchanan with us. Do you like? Are we going to see changes? You'd be more on this than I think anybody. Changes as far as college players not being college players and just being able to, I don't know, five or so years down the road just come straight out. And, are we going to see that? That's probably a question for somebody else, but this kind of occurs to me because that's part of your gig.
Sure.
Is evaluating that particular talent, and it's probably going to change a little bit landscape-wise.
I think every team is preparing for that possibility.
Sure.
When you look at the talent of high school kids today, when I look back, and I'm sure you look back when we were in high school, kids look different. I didn't
see anybody go about 270 and jumping 42-inch vertical leap or anything like that. I know that for sure.
I have a 13-year-old son, and I go see some of these high school kids in the summer events we're allowed to attend, and I'm like, oh, my gosh, my son's going to have to play against these guys in a couple of years. But, the amount of, strength and conditioning, the diet, the weight training, all has become so advanced that, kids today are more and more physically prepared to be professionals than they ever were.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I want to ask you about Domas Sabonis, too. He worked on his game in the offseason. I always thought he was well prepared to be hard-nosed, interior playing type of guy that you need, but also I think his game is going to be able to transition, go to the outside, and be that big man type of NBA player that we see across the board now in the league. You think, is he going to transition to that role? And furthermore, is he going to have the opportunity to do that? Because I don't know how often you're going to find him on the outside beyond three-point range.
Yeah, I think Domas worked on that this offseason. In Oklahoma City, he shot a lot of threes, and we kind of got him back to what, his game was in college and growing up was, playing at the elbows, playing the high post, making decisions with the ball. And I think you'll see him shoot threes. If you leave him open, he's not going to be afraid to shoot them this year. We're not running plays to get him threes, but sometimes you just find yourself, in that position when he's playing with Tyreke and, Tyreke turns the corner and, Domas's man goes with Tyreke. He may flip it back to him and he might have a, top of the key three-pointer every now and then. But Domas's strengths are facilitating and, making decisions with the ball, running dribble handoffs, toss games, back cuts, screen and roll, screen and dive, short dives. He's just so versatile, of an offensive player that I think, if trying to have him just worry about shooting threes takes away from what he is as a player. And I think if you ask Domas, I think is just give me the ball and let me make some decisions, because I think he's very good at making the game easier for people around him.
How enjoyable is it to hang out with the man with two brains known as Pete Dinwiddie? Is that a good time?
Pete is a sharp guy.
There's nobody smarter than Pete Dinwiddie.
Yeah.
And he's also tended bar around here locally a bunch, so I give him kudos for that.
Versatility. We value versatility, not only on the court, but off the court.
I always thought, I make fun of him all the time, and I say, do they go to you when they need math done? And so, because
we go to Peter for everything. He's a jack of all trades.
You mentioned, too, Chad, before I let you go, you've been in the room consistently with Michael Jordan, consistently with Larry Bird. How is that? As far as just being there with those types of guys, as they were as players, and now obviously within organizations.
I mean, they can bring a completely different perspective on decision making. When you're talking about your team, you're talking about a player, you're talking about somebody in the draft, just because of their background. I mean, they're two of the most successful athletes of our time, and they both have different personalities. They're very, very bright, obviously, when it comes to basketball, but they're very, very bright when it comes to business. And, they can read people very well. They understand the dynamics of a coach-player relationship, a player-player relationship. They can look at a team and say, this is why I think this team is playing well or not playing well. And they can find the little things that maybe the average person, like myself or Kevin or Peter, overlook because they're so bright and they see everything. And those great coaches, they can watch practice and they know what all 10 guys did on every play. And that's kind of like Larry and Michael, the same. They can watch a game and they can tell you about all 10 guys on the court.
I tell you what, it drives me crazy too. Wouldn't it be great to have that skill to be able to think ahead that far? Because I live in the now, but have people that have, and I'm talking about players that can see ahead that far is an amazing thing. There has to be, right, a signature moment. Let's say your signature moment with Michael Jordan when he agreed with something you said or an evaluation you made where you go, oh, okay. Was there a defining moment there? Do you remember? Maybe with Larry, too. Anything come to mind?
With Larry, for me, I knew I had arrived in the NBA. This is my 15th season in the NBA. I knew I had arrived in the NBA when we were in Chicago last year for the Combine, and we're leaving our hotel. We're going to go have dinner, and we got in an Uber. You should see the Uber driver's look on his face when Larry Bird gets in his car. But we're leaving dinner that night, and we're walking out to get into the car to drive back to the hotel, and this guy in the street says, "It's number 33. It's really him. It's number 33. It's the legend. He's here." So we get in the car, and it's kind of quiet. Nobody's saying anything. It's Kevin, myself, and Larry. And I said, how'd that guy remember my number at Simpson? And Larry kind of looked at me like, really? But, those guys are just, they're good human beings. They're for every right they have to have a big ego. They don't. They're about the right things. Larry's all about the team. He loves the Pacers. And he's been a huge resource for Kevin, Peter, and I. And
he's still around a great deal?
He's around, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. He's always available. Kevin talks to him quite a bit. Donnie Walsh has been obviously invaluable to us.
There's no question.
The expertise, the experience, and the knowledge that those guys bring they're a big part of the success we had last year and hopefully moving forward this year.
You guys jumped in an Uber together.
Yeah, that Uber driver was looking in the car in his seat. My friends aren't going to believe this one.
An Uber here. Hey, have a great season. Chad, thanks for coming by. I appreciate that. I know you got some television duties I think you got to get up to do in just a second. But we'll do it again very soon anytime you want to come on. Hey, and tell Dinwiddie that I said hello, too. I haven't talked to him in a while. But
he doesn't leave his office much. He works about 23 hours a day, so that's probably why you haven't seen him.
You better. Thanks, Chad.
Thanks.
Chad Buchanan, general manager of the Pacers right there. He's with us. That's awesome. Thank you, Chad. Uber, huh? That's nice. Now, that was, I thought, my whole thought with bringing Chad on here was I kind of wanted to go more in depth on thoughts on why you bring in those three, what you really liked, and the dynamic with the 6 one-year contracts you have moving forward. I don't know about anybody else. That was kind of the nuts and bolts, and that's what I mentioned before the interview started. You were going to get kind of the nuts and bolts of it. I thought that was really interesting to me. I mean, it really was. Chad Buchanan, general manager of the Pacers, here inside the Pennsylvania Street Entry Pavilion at Bankers Life Fieldhouse. Night number 1, Grizz and Pacers. Quick break. We'll come back, play off of what he had to say. We'll get some of your phone calls at 239-1070. Get you caught up on some MLB, some NFL, and Eddie Gill's going to sit down and talk with us next.
Hey, guy. Wrangler